We all have habits. We all need habits. It's one of those it's an interesting concept because it is both universal in the sense that we all have them, we all need them, but it's also highly individual. Your habits feel like your habits, not mine. And so it's both universal and specific. And that's an interesting contrast. And I think it leads to one of the reasons why people are so interested in the topic. We all have them, we all need them, we all feel like they're our own, and we want to come up with our little version of them. But the habit also is like an entrance ramp to how you spend your time in other ways. Like the habit of pulling out your phone. That habit might only take 2 seconds to do, but then it might dictate what you do for the next hour. You're answering emails or browsing social media or playing a video game or whatever. And it was really the initial habit of pulling out the phone that shaped what that hour did. So the influence of our habits is enormous. In a lot of ways, your results in life are kind of a lagging measure of the habits that precede them. Like your knowledge is a lagging measure of your reading and learning habits. Your bank account is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Even silly stuff like the amount of clutter in your living room is the lagging measure of your cleaning habits. And so we all so badly want our outcomes to change. We also badly want our results to change. But the results are not actually the thing that needs to change. It's like fix the habits and the results will fix themselves. Change the inputs and the outputs will shift automatically.
And it's funny because the book has shaped tens and tens and tens of millions of lives, but it also must have shaped you in some ways.
Oh, of course. In a way, I had to learn the concepts to write the book. Like I had to build writing habits to write the book. The fact that I have struggled with habits and failed with them, the fact that I've tried things and it hasn't worked out, the fact that I have eventually broken through and I've been able to build habits, that all of that made the book better because you realize how hard it is to have something practical to say. I actually think I have this little theory that a lot of books are branded as how-to books, but they're actually what-to books. They tell you what to think. You should be confident. You should believe in yourself. You should take XYZ action. But they don't actually tell you how to do those things.
And in hindsight, is there anything you look back on that you regret about the book?
I don't think there's anything that I regret. If I could add something, I would add something. I would add this simple question, which is, what would it look like if this was fun? What would it look like if your habits were fun? Like the most common New Year's resolution is to do some form of exercise. So, I feel like a lot of people are going to the gym in January because they feel like they should go to the gym or society wants them to go to the gym, or there's some kind of social pressure to go to the gym. But if we were to come up with a list of what it means to be active and fit, and healthy, we could come up with a long list of things. Go to the gym and lift weights. You could kayak, rock climb, do yoga, Pilates, whatever. We could probably sit here for like 15 minutes and come up with a real long list. And for most of your habits, if it's an important habit to you, I think it's worth it to take 10 minutes and write that list out and then look at it at the end and say, what would this look like if it was fun? Which of these options is the most fun to me? And that doesn't mean that your habits will be like the most fun thing that you do each day. It's not like it's always going to feel like going to a concert or something, but it does mean that pretty much any habit can be more fun than the default, so you might as well take a little bit of time to figure out what is the fun version of this. And ultimately, I think the reason why this matters is that if you're having fun, you're more likely to stick with it. You're more likely to persevere. The person who's having fun is actually the person who's dangerous. Like you don't want to compete with them, because they're having a good time. When it gets difficult, they're way more likely to stick with it. The person who it felt like a hassle at the start was kind of, annoying. They sort of have a negative frame around the behavior to begin with. Well, as soon as it gets difficult, they didn't want to do it in the first place. So they're much more likely to give up. David Epstein, who's the author of Range and Sports Genius, friend of mine, he told me once, grit is fit. Grit is fit. And what he means is that everybody wants to be gritty. They want to persevere. But the way that you display that grit and discipline and perseverance is in areas where you are well suited, where it's a good fit for you. If it's a good fit, if you're well suited for it, if you're having fun, if you're interested and engaged, then you're way more likely to stick with it. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like the biggest hurdle to clear, and this is true maybe for life in general, but definitely for habits, because everybody wants to be consistent with their habits. Everybody wants to stick to them. The biggest hurdle to clear is, are you interested? Are you engaged? Are you having fun? And so the more that you can get closer to that, the more fun it can be, the more likely you are to persevere and stick with it.
I was just thinking about this idea actually the other day because I was writing, when we hit a subscriber milestone, I was trying to think about what actually mattered the most. And one of the first thing I wrote was creating the conditions to out-persist. And what I mean by that is like create the conditions so that you can do this for long enough that things start compounding in your favor, like learning starts compounding in your favor, like the returns, like the subscribers, or that could be your finances, whatever, start compounding in your favor.
The question that you asked is very similar to one that I ask myself a lot, which is, am I creating the conditions for success? So I had a really good stretch of training in the gym. And then about 2.5 years ago, I was in pretty good shape. And then I had a year where it was just like really inconsistent. I missed a lot of workouts, things, sometimes it'd go well, sometimes it wouldn't, whatever. And after that year, I was like, okay, so I got to change something. And on the surface, you look at it and you think, I'm having trouble with the workouts. You think there's some problem with, exercise. But that was actually not the problem. The problem was I wasn't creating the conditions for success. And so there were lots of other things that were intervening and like interrupting my day and making it easy for me to miss. So this last year I hired a trainer and he shows up at 11 a.m. every, 4 days a week. And when he gets there, every single time it's a hassle because I'm in the middle of something. Right. Every time I've got something going on and I kind of am like annoyed by it that he's there, but we're creating the conditions for success and it makes sure that I get down there and I do it. And then every time when I get done with the workout, I'm like, I'm glad I took the time to do that. And so nothing really needed to change with the workout. That was not the problem. The problem was I didn't have the right conditions to start the workout. And so I think this actually reveals a really deep and important thing about habits, which is so much of it is about mastering the art of getting started. It's making it easy to start. In a way, like probably 70% of what's in Atomic Habits are different strategies and different ideas and different tools that help you get started or makes starting easier. This trainer who I've been working with now, he came over the other day and he told me, yeah, I had a class in the morning. 8 people were supposed to come, but it was a pretty gross day. It was like rainy and wet and kind of cold, and only 2 people showed up. And I was talking to him about it, and I said, what's interesting to me about that is how little of an edge you need to gain an advantage. Really what we're talking about there is you just need to be okay with being inconvenienced or uncomfortable for like 5 to 10 minutes, getting dressed, getting through the rain, getting to your car, getting to the gym. The workout is the same that it's always been. It's the same, you're in the same gym that you are in the summer or when the weather's beautiful or whatever. So it's really, can you handle that like 5 minutes of inconvenience? And so many things in life are like that. Can you master that little moment? And if you can, and you can still get started, that's when you gain an advantage. Everybody works out on the good days, but on the days when you feel stressed and tired, on the days when the weather's bad and it's kind of inconvenient, on the days when you don't really feel like it, can you show up, even if it's in a small way? One of my little mantras that I try to keep in mind is reduce the scope, but stick to the schedule. So the normal scope might be I write for 30 minutes. And then you look up at the clock and you're like, oh, I only have 15. And sometimes what happens in your head is you're like, oh, I don't have enough time to write today. Or you're like, oh, I was planning to work out for 60 minutes. And you look up and you're like, time got away from me. I only have 20 minutes now. I don't have time to go to the gym. It's easy to talk yourself out of it. But reduce the scope, but stick to the schedule. It's like, well, I only got 20 minutes instead of 60. So I'll just get in there and do a couple sets of squats and that's it. And I've had so many workouts that have been like that, where you're like almost, it's easy to be kind of disappointed you weren't able to do the whole thing that you wanted to do. But you didn't throw up a 0. And if you don't throw up a 0, you maintain the habit. And if you maintain the habit, all you need is time. And so the bad days are more important than the good days in that sense. You need to figure out how do you show up even when it's not optimal.
And that first 5 minutes, I was thinking about all the first 5-minute battles that I've won over the last week, because I lost track of my workout. I've been traveling through Asia on this tour I've been doing, got back, fallen off. The motivation doesn't seem to be quite the same as it was before I left. So it's like I'm dragging myself there. The workouts are like 4 out of 10. But I went.
Yeah.
And now I think the momentum is building. But that first 5-minute point, is there anything that you've learned, any frameworks, any tactics for making sure you get past that first 5 minutes so you can get into the flow of the habit?
Yeah, there's multiple things. So first thing is try to prime the environment to make the first action easy. Prime the environment to make the first action easy. So let's say writing, for example. I find that for myself, the biggest point of friction is choosing what to write about. Once I've actually finally settled, this is the thing I'm writing today, then I can get into it and I'm off and running. But I'll sit there for 2 hours just debating whether it's the right thing to be focused on writing or not. Should I work on this chapter? Should I work on something else or whatever? So what I've started to do is sometimes I will write the first sentence of what I'm going to write and just leave it on the Google Doc right there and then leave. And the next day when I come back, I'm already in, right? Like it's already, the first sentence is already written. So now I'm just writing the next piece of what's coming rather than trying to choose what to write about. Another one that I've done sometimes is sometimes I'll write the topic or I'll write the sentence on a Post-it note and I'll put it on top of the keyboard. And so when I come into the office, it's right there in front of me. I can't, I got to pick it off the keys to log on to the computer. And so it's like, remember, this is what you're writing about right now, So it's just trying to make it easy to get in. I have a bunch of readers who do stuff like set their running clothes out the night before, so they're right next to the bed. You got your clothes and your shoes there. I have one woman, I just talked to her at an event. She came up after and she said, I actually sleep in my running clothes and I just get out and put her shoes on and goes right out the door. But you're trying to prime the environment to make the action easy. Okay, so how can you set up the spaces that you're in to prime those habits? I think one really interesting question to ask, walk into the rooms where you spend most of your time each day, your office, your living room, your bedroom, and then look around and ask yourself, what is this space designed to encourage? What behaviors are easy here? What behaviors are obvious here? And the good habits that you say you want to build, are those the path of least resistance? Is that the obvious thing in this environment? And if not, maybe you can make some adjustments to try to make the good habit easier and the distractions maybe a little bit harder. So that's first thing, prime the environment to make the action easy. Second thing is, if there's like one principle that is probably the single most important for building habits, it's make it easy. Just scale it down and make it easy. I refer to it sometimes as the 2-minute rule. So take whatever habit you're trying to work on, you scale it down to something that takes 2 minutes or less to do. So read 30 books a year becomes read 1 page, or do yoga 4 days a week becomes take out my yoga mat. Sometimes I will mention this to people and they resist it a little bit. They're like, okay, buddy, like I know the real goal isn't just to take my yoga mat out. No, I'm actually trying to do the workout. So it's some kind of mental trick and I know it's a trick, then why would I fall for it, basically? But there's this guy, I mentioned him in Atomic Habits, his name's Mitch. And he went to the gym and for the first 6 weeks, he had this strange little rule for himself where he wasn't allowed to stay for longer than 5 minutes. So he'd get in the car, drive to the gym, get out, do half an exercise, get back in the car, drive home. And you're like, this sounds silly, right? Clearly, this is not going to get the guy the results that he wants. But what you realize is that he was mastering the art of showing up, right? He was becoming the type of person that went to the gym 4 days a week, even if it was only for 5 minutes. And so I think this is kind of a deep truth about habits, which is a habit must be established before it can be improved. It has to become the standard in your life before you optimize and scale it up into something more. There's that quote from Ed Lattimore where he says, the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. There are a lot of things in life that are like that. And so by trying to make it easy to master, easy to get started, then you're in the game. Now you're in the arena. There's all kinds of things you can improve from there.